Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Today, I have the privilege of introducing three phenomenal educators who just so happen to be African American males. So at this time, I would like for them to introduce themselves as well as their content area or grade level that they teach. So I will have Jarmel go first.
Hello, everybody. I teach for Baltimore City Public Schools. I teach health and physical education. I am a all-registered athletic director, assistant athletic director. Been teaching for 5 years.
Great.
All right, Reggie Hines. I'm teaching 5th grade math and science, elementary, and I've been teaching for 5 years.
My name is James Parker. I'm teaching 6th grade ELA in social studies and 7th grade ELA in social studies, and I've been teaching for 4 years.
Great. So we're just going to really jump into our conversation. As you all can see, the topic is being an African American male educator in the United States. So our first question is, why did you become an educator?
I became an educator to bridge the education gap among African American boys and become a role model and become a mentor and bridge the data gap with reading and writing.
Wow.
I'm gonna be honest, I think I'm still finding out my why, because I was actually a psychology major when I went to school, and now I'm lateral entry. But I would say why I became an educator, if I were to have an answer now, it would be to educate Black kids. That's as simple as that. Educate Black kids.
Great.
For me, why I became an educator, it never depended on whether the kid was Black, white, Hispanic, or Asian, Philippines, or anything like that. I wanted to teach because I wanted to be able to teach the whole child. I wanted to be able to make a difference in the lives of children, regardless of where they came from, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of their background. I wanted to be able to walk into a space where young minds would believe in me, and they will be able to take everything that I said, even if they didn't remember it fully word for word what I said, but they will remember exactly how I made them feel.
Right. Yeah, I kind of resonate with that because growing up, it was always me having white teachers, white male teachers, but I never had the chance to have an African American male teacher, except for when I got to middle school. And even after that, I never saw that in a classroom again. So for me, it was just to be able to say, hey, yeah, my child or my teacher was Black. He was also a male. So from there, that just really gives the students the opportunity to see that we are more than rappers, we're more than sports players, not knocking that profession, but we can also do things such as being in the field of education as well. Question number 2 is, what in your opinion is the most important part of your job? More specifically, what allows you to wake up in the morning and go into school building? So you all can just converse from there. I'm not going to call on anyone in particular.
I would say the most important part of my job, when I first started teaching, my first year of teaching, I was really trying to figure out, like, what is it that makes it tick? Like, what is it that makes a teacher a great teacher? And when it all came down to an end, and we had our award ceremony, and I was voted the students' favorite 7th grade teacher, I realized that wholeheartedly it was the relationships that were built. Because content can be taught to any teacher, anybody inspiring to be a teacher, we can teach you the content. There are times where there were certain things that we had to teach and I didn't remember it from when I was in school. So yes, I had to go back over it that night before and refresh myself on it. But there's no handbook that teaches a teacher how to build relationships with his students. There's no handbook that teaches a teacher how to care about their students. It's not on the praxis or anywhere in there. It all comes from the heart. So when you think about it, and as for me, when I wake up in the morning, I go inside of my building, I always think of what did my students tell me on yesterday. I remember this kid told me he wanted to kill himself yesterday, and I was the only person that he told. So if he doesn't see me today, what's going to happen to him?
Yeah.
Or this kid was looking forward to me bringing him breakfast today because he doesn't traditionally eat at home and he's going to be hungry. What's going to happen to him if I'm not there? So that drive, it's the kids that gets me there. And I tell people all the time, the principals, they do hire you, but I don't work for my principal. I work for my students. That's who I'm employed by. Because without them, I wouldn't have a job. There would be no reason for me to be there if they're not there.
They're not there. Yeah, that's good.
The most important part of my job is being more than just a teacher. It's also being a big brother, a counselor, a mentor to the students. I come daily to so many broken students who just ask me for money, ask me for food, ask me for a daily talk. And I do lunch brunch with my students, pick a group of 4 students and just have that open talk with them outside of content purposes and just talk to them. And that's what it's all about to me. Being that big brother, that father to them.
Absolutely.
And I would say too, it is relationships. I think one of the things that made me cry in front of my classroom is when a girl said, "Can I come live with you? Because you're like a dad to me." And I've had that multiple times, and it's mostly from the girls. And just so happened, I had a girl not too long ago.
Yeah.
And so those relationships build so much character. And then too, when I'm able to build relationships, it makes teaching so much fun. And then you get people asking questions, how do you get to that child? And I have problems with them. It's simple. You get to know the child as a basic human being, and you treat them like a human being. And then it goes from there. So when I go to school, they say, "Why you got your church clothes on?"
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Hear it
like
all the
trying
time.
to change that narrative. Like, I'm not going to church. You can also be professional. This is why I can come to school. And then they look forward to that. They look forward to commenting on shoes. They look forward to commenting on socks. And if I don't have a tie on that day that I'm supposed to wear, they're going to tell me about it.
Yeah.
So those type of relationships where it's almost like they're my child. So yeah,
Up on patterns that we do, everything. So I love how I could connect to a student on a social and emotional level, a whole child. So that makes a huge difference. So that's my why as an educator.
Yeah, it's funny because one thing that I can't stand, my first year teaching at my previous school, I kept receiving so many different Cume folders and things like that. And then from the Cume folders, I would see behavior. I would see a red dot. I would see this. I would see that. And then their previous teachers would come to me and say, "You're going to have to watch this one because he or she does this." But you haven't even given me an opportunity to see the child for myself and then to be able to continually build that relationship with them. I don't care what they did in the previous year. Right now, they're in my class. Therefore, I'm going to continue to look at them as if they are my student. So a lot of teachers don't necessarily give them the opportunity to grow from what they were considered last school year. So in that's pretty much the reason why I wake up to in that stereotype of thinking just because a child did something last year, they're going to do it again this year.
But there's a problem with that, where that stems from, and we were just talking about this in my class. A part of where that stems from is the evaluation process that teachers have to go through.
Yeah.
What you go through that year before are the things that your principal is going to hold on to for you to be better that next year. So it's kind of everything is a mentality. And we have that mentality that in education that the year before justifies what's going to happen the following year. And either you're going to improve on that or whether you're going to fail on that. And then we look at students in the exact same way. I've seen teachers that would take their rosters to other teachers and say, "Oh, did you have this kid? How was he for you?" Does it really matter? Because I've had so many kids that tore it up when they were in 6th grade and they came in my class and they were the best kids ever. And it's why, because those kids see your heart. Every kid knows who cares about them. And if they know that you don't care about them, they're going to respond to you in just that way, because they're not going to care about you. But when you have kids that will defend you against administrators, that will defend you against other teachers, that's how you know you made that name for yourself. That's how you know your kids care about you. But we, as educators in this whole realm, we have to get out of the whole what happened last year is going to be a part of what happened this year. It's across the board. It's even with schools, you know, even at the district level and even at the state level, they look and say, oh, well, last year your school made a D. Oh, well, here's our prediction. Oh, this year you guys are going to be at a C- based off of this. And then when you do everything that you can and your kids get a B, it's not a, oh, congratulations.
Congratulations. You
should have did this in the first place. You take so much away from what educators and students actually try to do on an everyday basis to better themselves as educators, to better themselves as students, because we're so wrapped up into what was and trying to make it what it could be.
Yeah, that's good.
Sorry for my rant.
It happens.
You brought up a good point too, that, you know, even I had done that my first year because I didn't know what kind of culture I was coming in. But then I knew after that I wasn't going to do it again. And you will always get that that unwanted opinion from somebody that doesn't have classroom management. And they'll tell you, do you have such and such and such? Oh, she used to do such and such and such. And the minute that they see that they're not doing what they did in their class, in my class, they will never say, oh, you're doing such a good job. They will never congratulate you.
No.
Never will.
Walk in their classroom and it looks like the White House, a circus.
Indeed.
They will never congratulate you.
I mean, kids are bouncing all over the place, but they always want to give advice to you and say, you need to watch this. Well, you need to watch 1, 2, 3, and that kid that just slapped her. You might want to go watch them too.
And these happen to be veteran teachers too.
Yeah.
It's always the veteran teachers, though, the teachers that have taught for 13 and 14 years and they think that they have it all. But one thing I always say when I talk to these veteran teachers that have been teaching for 14 years, what you learned as an educator 14 years ago does not apply to what these kids and the mentality that they have on now.
It's a complete different generation.
Education. The teachers are not at the generational speed that they need to be to reach these kids. We have a lot of old teachers, and a lot of them need to go ahead and retire because the time is up. Education is moving further away from what they actually know and technology and everything like that. So it's okay to just say sometimes I've had enough.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Everybody else feel bad because they don't snatch a paddle out to beat Johnny for popping gum in class. Because when Johnny pops gum, I'm saying, and you didn't give me any.
You didn't. Absolutely. So I feel like that's the perfect segue to our next question, which is, why do you feel that there is a shortage of African-American male educators in the U.S.? We make up 2%. It's 2% of African-American male educators in the U.S. And in my opinion, I feel that the reason being is because people oftentimes look at us as being the disciplinarian. So they try to lead us out of the classroom to go into the administrative field. And then from there, guess what? There is no longer education or Black African-American male educators in the classrooms. They're now in the leadership roles. So in my opinion, that's why I feel that we have a shortage in the classroom.
In my opinion, I think there's a huge shortage because the lack of funding. A lot of Black educators they're not paying us enough, and we're not essential in a way. So I think that big issue for me is lack of pay. And if I'm not getting paid for my worth, for all the headaches I have to go through, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest issues is the stereotype of kids. when people hear about teachers and they talk to me like, oh, you're a teacher? Oh, I couldn't deal with those kids. I'll be to hit somebody's kid. And it's because the mentality that other teachers have put out there that kids are just this and they're that, and oh, they're just all over the place. And that's not always the truth. Some of these kids that they see here and talk about every single day are some of the sweetest kids. They just didn't have anybody that they liked enough to listen to them.
Right.
But another problem is that the way that African American males are perceived in this country and the way that they make African American males feel about themselves, how many African American males actually want to take the time to go sit inside of a classroom and try to teach a kid how to be powerful and how to keep going, when we have people out here, whites out here, shooting black men for no apparent reason, just because they can. So when we look at all these different stigmas and we look at African American males, when you think about, well, should I go into the classroom? First problem, am I going to be valued? Are they going to value me in this position just because I'm an educator? Are they going to give me the same things that they're going to give to the white teacher that's across the hall? Am I going to get the same respect from administration and other teachers like that? There's a problem. There's value there. And also, education, since the beginning of time, was always seen as a job for women. It was never a job that was seen that men should actually do. See, so we're so stuck in what was that we are having a hard time progressing into what needs to be. Release the stigma of what these kids are in these schools. Value African Americans and African American males inside of the classroom and provide them with the same resources, the same support, the same encouragement that you would give to anybody else, and change the narrative outside of the classroom to show that black men are valued regardless of what position they go into, because we're going to continuously have this problem. I don't even think it's the pay for most African American male teachers, because me, and I can tell everybody here honestly, like, I would teach for free because I love teaching. That's what I do. That's what I do. I don't want to do anything else in this world but be an educator. So when we're looking at the scope of why they aren't there, there's so many reasons why they aren't there. And I don't think anybody's actually trying to find solutions to get us there. And we're leaving in droves. We're leaving in droves. How many black male teachers are in your schools?
Right.
Because I know my new school, it's only me and one other.
Yeah. It's about 2 at mine.
How many do you got?
How many, Jarmel?
8.
Oh, wow.
8 out of how many teachers? 90?
Yeah, just about. Wow. I just went over to high school. So.
That's nothing.
Yeah.
Underrepresented.
Wow.
And then principals are and then also you can research it. Principals are not really keen on hiring African American male teachers. Our resumes always get pushed to the bottom. A lot of them see it as a last resort.
I could second that. I have a white administrator this upcoming year, and in my interview with him, he said, I interviewed so many other health teachers and so many other teachers, and decided to pick you because you was African American. So to hear that from a white educator, white administrator itself, sprung a lot forth to me. So, and we have 3 other assistant principals.
Wow,
so that made a difference to hear that.
Yeah.
If you don't treat black boys well in elementary school, I always think it starts at elementary school. And then that transfers over to middle school, and then that transfers over to high school. What reason would they come back and teach if they've had a negative experience every single year in school? Why would they come back? And so it's just like you said, you have to value these kids, and it goes back to relationships. And I think we're going to get to it later, but there's no science to it that they're incapable of learning. And so I would even take it a step further. One of the reasons why I thought about quitting is because I thought that because when everybody was going to school for education and all this stuff, that they actually cared about kids, no matter who they were. And that was a total lie. And they would brag on all their degrees. I got a master's in this. I got a doctor's in this. I've done all these programs. I went over to Kenya and all these stuff and teach to these kids, and they still don't get it. And then even to go even further, why am I looked at as a disciplinarian all the time? Why do you have to keep sending me all of your bad kids?
It's funny. That was actually one of the questions.
So I said, and I talked to my I'm open about it. I talked to my admin about it. I said, y'all can't keep sending me these kids. It's me and my other teammate who's also a Black male educator. We're the only two that teach core classes in the school. And so I say, y'all can't keep sending it. I'm getting kids from kindergarten. Why are you all the way from the other side? Why are you sending them over there? And I'm not going to say anything to them. Just make them go back there, do the work, and that's it. And I'll talk to them later. But I have 42 kids that I need to be teaching. Y'all can keep sending me. So I teach 2 classes. So I teach a total of 42 at a time. So I'm just like, 42. How does it not go back to the root of that classroom teacher that doesn't have classroom management? I said, so you sending them to me does not help them with their classroom management. So you need to be either on them or you need to be sending them somewhere. But sending them to me is not helping at all. It's just giving them a break. And I'm sitting here babysitting.
It's so funny because that was one of the questions I actually took out, because in my mind, I thought I was the only one who kept receiving all of these kids when I was in the classroom. And I'm like, I have my students here. You expect me to stop my lesson to figure out why he knocking on my door, for one, talking about my teacher said I need to come tap out in your classroom. At some point, those students just knew they'll knock on the door. I'm like, come on in. Then at that point, they just knew to go to the back table, because I'm not going to stop my instruction to deal with a child that's not even mine. So at that point, that's when I had to really speak to my administrative team and say, hey, I'm receiving kids from this teacher, this teacher, this teacher. What is it that we can do to pretty much collaborate together to work on classroom management? Because that's something that I feel like I really excel in. So from there, it was just something as simple as providing them with the professional development to be able to figure out different strategies to use for classroom management and ways that you can just simply deal with in the classroom. Not every situation calls for a child to be tabbed out or a child to go to the principal's office. Some things can be handled inside of the classroom, but teachers are not wanting to actually go forth and do that.
And the only reason why sometimes I would say yes is because I did not want that child to get suspended. And so that was the only reason why I didn't say no. Now, there was a lot of kids I said no, go send them somewhere else. But for those kids that were on the verge of suspension, I said, okay, come on, bring them in. And literally, I had a child that was on her way to alternative school. And they were saying, do you want this child? I said, absolutely. Give her to me. I said, I'm not going to put this child in a place where she cannot thrive. And God knows that girl got straight A's in my class. No problems in my class. We might have had one time, but she ain't crossed me again. But we only have one time. All it takes is one time.
That's all. That's good. So that again speaks to our next question. What strategies or techniques do you bring forth to pretty much impact the school culture?
I don't let I tell my students this day one, I don't let other teachers talk about them, whether they have them or whether they know them or whether they don't know. I do not. That's one thing I do not let happen. I do not let anybody talk bad about them. And I also I don't let people corner me in the room. so they can start talking about kids. These kids can't do this. These kids can't do that. If you can't come up with something positive about a child, don't talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I will literally, this is me. I'm sorry. This is positive in my eyes. I will send my kids all to the bus, and I will go back into my room and close my door.
Yeah.
Right.
And I have to screen who's coming in my classroom, because there's people that just want to get a rise out of me.
Yeah.
And I'm not a person that even gets mad at stuff. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What I have done, I have stayed after school countless times to help students succeed in, even if it's not my content, even if it's in writing or math, make sure that student is succeeding on that next test that they have the next day. For upcoming state testing, I'm always making sure, staying after school, even during my lunch, taking out of my personal time to make sure a student is succeeding. So that's what I have always done.
Mm-hmm.
But I me personally is the involvement. I am heavily involved in everything that my students do. So I'm showing up to the football games and the basketball games and the volleyball games and softball games, and showing up to track meets when we're not in soccer practice. And I coach soccer, so I'm always at the soccer games, but I'm also there for them outside of school. People don't even realize that the school culture also extends outside of the classroom. It goes into that community. Right. And when you leave that school, and if you have anyway, like I have an Instagram for my students to contact me on. So when you leave there and your kids are writing you on Instagram and, they're going through something at home and they're saying, hey, I'm dealing with this, and you're talking to them and helping them get through it. See, that changes the culture, because they go back to school the next day and some of them really do feel okay now. They know they don't have to act out today to get attention to tell somebody what's going on. It's already been solved. But one thing I wanted to say about what he was saying about, teachers and, them talking about the students and talking about what a student can't do. Do these teachers ever sit around and ask themselves, what are you not doing that student isn't getting it? Because I've always understood it as an educator, if the student is not learning in the way that we teach, then we have to change the way that we teach. We have to reach the student. The student's job is not to reach us.
Right.
So if that kid isn't getting it, then what part are you not getting about your job that you got to do a little bit more, that you have to change the way that you're doing things? But people that are like that are the ones that are stuck in their ways, and they feel like students are supposed to learn in whichever way that they teach. But that's not it, because that's the reason why they're learning styles. Kids that are auditory, kids that are visual learners. Mm-hmm. We gotta be able to pay homage to that, and that's when they talk about teaching the whole child. But we don't have teachers that teach the whole child. We have teachers that teach to the kid that they know is going to succeed, and everybody else that's in the background, you fall in line. If you make it, you make it. If you don't, you don't. But one thing they're going to do is they're going to blame you at the end of the year if their scores aren't correct.
Yeah.
What they thought they were supposed to be.
Wow. Yeah, that's
you're on mute, man.
I think a lot of teachers lost the gap of teaching on a social and emotional, reaching that student and not just teaching.
Mm-hmm.
That's been the biggest tactic itself right there. Teaching on the social and emotional, the whole child.
Yeah. Wow, that's
emotional
good.
learning is very important, and education is very important especially for our African American kids who aren't receiving that emotional support at home, or even our Hispanic kids, especially when everything was going on with ICE and everything like that. When I was teaching at Albemarle Road Middle, we have a heavy Hispanic population, and we had kids that were scared to come to school every day, and they didn't understand, like, oh well, what if they pick us up from the bus stop, or what if they do this? So I typed up a nice little letter to give to them, to give to their parents about their rights and who they should call if ICE shows up at their door, providing these kids with some ease, providing them with some stability, and they'll pay homage to that, and they give it to their parents, and their parents will read it, and so everybody will be okay. So that school culture is not just inside the walls of that building. It has to extend outside.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's a good point, because I had a conversation with my admin And I said, it starts day one. Whenever we have all these videos where you have all these teachers crying about those videos that they show about how we should treat students.
Yeah.
Students are this, that, and the third, and they're crying and stuff. And then the first day we hear them yelling at kids and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, now, if we don't get to the point where we need to replace these videos and start addressing our own implicit biases about these kids, then what kind of culture are we setting? Because I can say all day I love these kids and still treat them like trash, and still not understand where they come from, or still not want to at least see how they live.
Right.
Because I can try to put a project together with teachers actually going within the community instead of the community always coming to the school. And you will not believe how many people will say, or find all these excuses. I can't do that. Or how do we need to do this?
At a time. It's too or that center right there, oh no, it's too much that go on up there. I don't want to get shot. But these are the very communities, the very centers that serve the kids in which you teach, and they don't understand. I think part of the whole thing is that when people decide to teach at certain schools, go through the neighborhood, figure out what it's like, and figure out if you could exist there. Because if you know that you can exist there, then you can't deal with the kids there, because that's where they're from. This is the mentality. This is what they live. This is where they eat, breathe, sleep, and play. And if you can't exist there, then you'll need to be there. But my thing also is that if you don't know how to exist in every community, then you shouldn't be a teacher at all, because teachers are supposed to be able to adapt.
Yeah.
Chameleons, adapt.
That's something that I feel like me in general, and a lot of people disagree with me on this, but I feel like we should bring back the home visits, being able to go into a child's home. What was that?
Not during COVID.
No, not obviously, yeah, not during COVID. Please don't. But bringing back the home visits to be able to sit in a child's space, so we can actually understand where he or she comes from. And then that way it pretty much changes our outlook on how we may view a child. Child may come into the building with dirty clothes and things like that. But in another teacher's mind, they are quick to judge them without necessarily knowing what's going on in their household. So for that, it's like, let me just take a step into what you're living in, and then I'll be able to understand what you're going.
They do still do the home visits, but they only do it through the MTSS process.
Right.
And that's a long, drawn out process that could take a whole school year to get through.
Yeah, absolutely.
This academic year, I worked for an alternative school, and that's what my school actually did this year. We had life coaches that actually going out to the homes, and
wow.
Yeah, it was very severe. We had a lot of alternative kids from 5th to 8th, had students on the kindergarten reading level, going out to the homes, providing extra services that they need outside of school, meeting them where they are on a social and emotional level, just really seeing from their environment setting to help them outside of school.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that would say a lot to any individual at that point. Our favorite question: should teachers have to be trained to educate African American students? I'm gonna get Reggie to speak to this, because previously we had a discussion on Facebook about it, and those who have passion for things, we tend to show that passion, whether it's through verbally or through simply words.
I'm going to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I made the point before. Say it again.
It broke up. What did you say?
I said no. I don't believe that they need to be trained to educate African American students specifically. And here's the reason why. Because most of the times when you have things like that, it comes from a place where they're incapable of understanding or incapable of learning, as if they are some other species that's different. And I get it that we come from different backgrounds and things like that. And that's when, like I said before, you have to understand different implicit biases. You have to understand where they come from in communities. But what makes teaching to a Black child different from the white child? There shouldn't be a difference. However, your relationships, and emphasis on it shouldn't be a difference. But when you build those relationships at the point, does it really matter what or who they are? If we're in this global talk about education and we're supposed to be this 21st century teacher that's supposed to understand and be aware, why do I necessarily have to have a training to teach a child that's supposed to be like someone else? Now, I get that they're coming from different communities. I understand it. And we have a different history of education. I totally get it. But I don't want it to come from a place where they're incapable of learning, or we have to have everybody on behavior systems or behavior plans to be able to teach them, or you have to listen to the latest hip hop or the latest rap videos to be able to build relationships and be able to teach them, or you got to jump on desks to just be able to teach them. You don't have to go through so many corny loops to be able to teach one population. And I get it. I totally get it. I do all those things, but I don't think if it doesn't come from a sincere heart, then you shouldn't be doing it in the first place.
Yeah.
I have to strongly disagree with what you said. And
Okay.
I say this because there are a few words that go into this. There's diversity, there's inclusion, there's racism, and then we talk about systemic racism. America is deeply rooted in racism. America is deeply rooted in the African American is not capable. Teach for America is one of those programs that was designed to so-called bridge the gap of inclusivity inside of schools, and it's not working. Why? Because they don't know how to adapt to those kids in those situations. Now, I can say that with teaching them how to, teach African American students, I don't think that it's on a more eccentric level, like, oh, jump on top of the desk, do this and that. But it's to understand the Black culture and understand what these kids have been through and understand where this country has rooted us from the very beginning when it comes to our educational foundation. Remember, we were drug over here during the Columbian Exchange. We didn't ask to come here. They didn't want us to be educated. We became educated. They didn't want us to be inside of the schools with them. We got inside of the schools with them. They didn't want us to build our own colleges and universities. We did that. We kept changing the narrative, and still to this very day, we have people out here who wants to take all of that away from them. My thing is that if you're going to teach these teachers how to teach them how to love these kids with some passion. Teach them how to understand that little Johnny is going through those things and how to deal with it. Those are the things. Teach them coping mechanisms, because let's be honest, African American kids don't go through the same things as white kids every day. And a white person isn't going to be able to tell me what I've been through and how to get over it, okay? They're not going to be able to tell me that because they don't understand that. And nobody has ever brought them to the table to say, see, this is what we experience and this is what these kids are experiencing. So you got to give a little bit of extra love to him, or you got to talk to him a little bit softer. And then there's some of those kids where you got to talk to them aggressively because that's the only way that they understand.
Yeah, they respond to it. Yeah.
But we have to be able to literally teach them how to teach us. And I wouldn't even say it's how to teach us. I would say it's how to treat us.
Yeah. Wow. So that's where I was going from.
It's how to treat us. Because if you treat us with some respect, you can teach us.
That's right.
We're going to listen to you then. But as long as you're treating me as if little Bobby over here is just God's gift to this world, and I'm nothing at all, and you don't even understand why I'm like this, but I don't want to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a single parent household. My mother had 4 kids. It was just her. My father was in and out of jail. People would have never expected me to get a high school diploma, to get a bachelor's, to get a master's, and to be pursuing a doctorate. Nobody would have ever thought that. I had my black teachers and one white teacher that I had, and he's primarily the main reason why I became a teacher. His name was Mr. Long, and he told me that I was going to be the best history teacher we would ever see in his lifetime. I don't know where he is now. I want to find him and tell him that I actually did it. But
yeah,
nobody actually, understood why I was going so hard and why I was trying so hard. And that's because nobody knew what I was dealing with at home. Nobody knew that my mom only had a high school education and she was working 3 and 4 jobs, and we were being raised by our grandparents trying to make it. Nobody knew that. So when you go through these struggles, there's certain things inside certain people where you're like, I don't want to grow up and be like this. I don't want to live like this. So I need you to fight for me because I'm fighting for me too. And that's what these educators need to be able to do. And they need to be able to understand that while these kids are fighting these battles, you got to be in the fight with them. You can't be sitting in the background just saying, oh, well, I never been through that. And education starts at home. We need to stop saying that too.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what goes on at home and what does go on at home. What matters is that what you are doing in this classroom right now to make them realize that everything that you're going through at home, soon it's going to break. And you are going to have your breakthrough, and you are going to be able to be as masterful and as powerful as you want to be. Mm-hmm. But we don't have that. And they're not teaching that to pre-service teachers. They're not teaching that in TFA, a program that's supposed to be changing diversity and inclusion inside of schools. They're not teaching that.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't know, with this particular question, I'm kind of neutral in a sense. My first year teaching, I was at a Title I school, and open house, the mom told me straight up, she was like, my child only responds to loudness. So if you are speaking to him a certain way and he feels that it's too soft, he's not going to respond. When it's time to discipline him, you need to get in that child's face and then just go up. I'm like, me personally, I'm like, okay, maybe it's another way around it. So I took my approach and still continuing to be that nurturer, but also understanding that, yeah, I'm nurturing you, but I also I don't tolerate anything that you're doing in my class. So that didn't work. At that point, a situation came in and he was acting out. I thought back to what mom said, got in that child's face, and he stopped just like that. And I'm like, wow. So she knows her child, but because he only responds to a level of volume that's up here, and then extremely sternness, for me, that hurt because that's all he knew. Every teacher that he had said the same exact thing. He would not respond to anything but someone being aggressive and loud to him.
Do you think that part of that needs to be, well, all of you, do you guys think that a part of this needs to be where that these pre-service teachers, or when they're going through teacher trainings, they need to teach them how to exist with minimal to no parent involvement? Because that plays a big role in this too when it comes to teaching these kids. Because there were teachers at my school that they would, oh, he didn't show up to class today. I've called his mom 6 times and she's not answering. She's not going to answer because she's working 6 jobs. You need to figure out how to deal with this.
Yeah. That's a good topic. Go ahead.
I think, so I was looking at your question. So I think if we switch the word trained to educate and actually be like what you were saying, trained to teach, I think that's where the direction we were going. Because I 100% agree with everything that everybody said. Even thinking about when I get ECU kids that come to my class and they go shadow and stuff, I usually get white girls. And so they'll come to my classroom and they'll see me pull out all the tricks and stuff. And then when they get up there, they try to do the same thing. And it's like,
It's not appropriate.
Yeah.
It's not appropriate.
Or they try to use everything that they study in their classroom, and I had to break it down to them. I was like, they're not. I said, throw all this stuff away. I'm sorry, you got to throw all this stuff away, and just watch me how I build the relationship with them, and then go from there, because they don't know you for one.
Yeah.
So you trying to bring in all your studies and your statistics and all this stuff, it's not going to work. Yeah. And it's amazing how much non-hands-on they are within the field. And I'm thinking, as soon as you get in the program, you need to be in a school until you graduate. Because how and I'm not bragging on myself, but how my psychology degree, who has no experience in teaching, and I'm one of the top science and math teachers in the district.
Yeah.
And I build relationships. How is that? And I got all these other veteran teachers. They got all these degrees.
Went to school for it.
How is that?
But that's the thing. I read a lot of stuff, but like they were talking about that. I'm gonna share the article with y'all too, because I have your emails now. But they were talking about how teaching, the best teachers are the ones who don't come out of education programs. Yep. And I wholeheartedly believe that, because I wasn't an education major. I majored in political science. I had my master's.
I wasn't either.
Like, I entered as lateral entry. So, like, but
we actually, I did too. Obviously, we was in the same class, but yeah.
So it's like everything, when we look at, everything holistically, it's just like, we're not teaching the right way in these education programs. They're not giving them a foundation. They're giving them a textbook, and teaching is not a textbook. There's no textbook to teaching. I'm sorry. Yeah. There's no manual on how to do this the right way, but there is a lot of ways to do it the wrong way.
Yep.
And the main wrong way is not building those relationships. But there are many right ways to do teaching. You just got to find your way. And you, like you said, throw all this away. Get rid of these textbooks and all these notes. And my teacher said I got to follow Bloom's taxonomy.
Yes.
Oh, man, that's a whole different
topic,
man. Okay. Go ahead, Jarrell.
I'm a health teacher, so I get away from the scripted talk book teach it to this T. I stopped doing that, and I start teaching from the content itself and start providing the real life experience. Hey, if Johnny has an HIV, how would you handle this? And then I show them real life stuff, because I'm not showing the little white people stuff. Hey, this is gonna happen because this is no. I show them real mannequins. I show them this. I provide them real life stuff, and I even have my administrator come to my room, and I provide them real content. Yeah. If on social and emotional, when I'm teaching social and emotional health, I'm teaching tobacco, I'm teaching sex ed, I provide real life content and got away from the script talk. The script talk, don't want to hear that. That's not letting them know what's happening in their environment. When I go out in my streets, I'm saying the tobacco, is this good for me? That's not good for me. That's how I look at it when I'm teaching.
That's the reason why they have to go into communities, because I even had people shocked that I was teaching financial literacy about what a savings account is, checkings account, and I'm teaching decimals. Yeah. They wouldn't think that I'm teaching. They would think you're supposed to just teach decimals, add, subtract, multiply, divide. No, this is a time where now I can teach them how to manage money, decimals.
Yeah,
like it's not rocket science. Literally, go in the community, and if you don't even want to go in the community, ask a Black teacher that you know to be sincere and ask them, how can I help these kids? Especially if you got a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, bro, just ask the question. I would rather you ask me than try to go out here and try to be Ron Clark in a day.
Yeah. That's
so.
And everybody isn't able. Everybody's not able. Like, everybody's not able to walk up in there and just command a room. You can't do it. And I'm sorry, me being, I'm only 5'6", so So my first year teaching, we were at open house and I was sitting on the desk and parents were just like, where's the teacher? Like, I get people walking out and I'm just looking like I'm sitting right here.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting year. Yes, it is going to be an interesting year. My kids automatically thought on the first day of school, my kids walked into that classroom and they automatically felt like, oh, this was going to be a field day. They popped up on the first day.
Yeah.
And I had to look around and it's like, I know this is my classroom and I know they're not acting a fool. So hold on, let me step outside real quick. Let me come back in. All right, so this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So everybody's going to have to understand this, that this space right here, this is mine, okay?
Yeah.
I need you to follow.
You be real with the students and you letting them know real life content is not about script talk teaching. It's about what today's society is really facing. That's when they really actually be like, oh yeah, this teacher, this my end teacher. I hate to say it like that, but this my end teacher, this my friend, and I get that a lot. Oh, my teacher know what they talking about because they had to go through this.
Yeah.
You got to let them know the real life hardcore stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
I think, man, you just brought something out. Does anybody do the stare where your class is just acting up and you just sit there? Or I'm good for I'll wait.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because that's what I heard growing up. I was so ready to become a teacher so I can say that I'll wait and I got my degree. Y'all got to get y'all's. So man, that was the best feeling ever.
I hate that one, but I know year before last, my students made me so mad that I walked around with a sign on my shirt, like a tag, and I wasn't talking to them at all, and it just had yes or no on it. So it's like yes or no. I didn't speak to them at all for like a week. It drove them insane. Insane. When they came in the classroom, everything was written on the board. No, I'm not teaching nothing. Here's your article. Here's your video. You do it. You turn it in over here. Do not speak to me. Everybody want to act like y'all. That next week when we came at the class, I had gifts and apology letters.
Yes, they give apology letters.
Yeah, I don't hate y'all, but y'all gonna respect me, and you're gonna understand that I care about y'all. We got things that we got to do, but y'all not gonna run amok up in here, okay? And look at me like I'm not capable, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that has been my biggest thing, is making sure they value people that look like them, because it's so rare that they're gonna get it. Like when I was in high school, I don't remember having a black teacher. I don't think I had one at all.
No, it wasn't any black teacher. Or it wasn't. Man,
I had 5 black teachers in high school.
I'm trying
and so, and even to be a black male, and I was like, yo,
I had 2 black male teachers all my life. 2. One.
And I was just like, yo, please. I said, this ain't nothing to put me on a pedestal or nothing, but please value me, because you're not gonna get this type of teacher. I said, I'm gonna be your best teacher that you ever had before. Don't even try to compare. But I said, you're probably not gonna see another one like me before. So please value what I'm giving. I'm giving you 100% every single day. Every single day. I didn't get another black male teacher until I got to college, man.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm thinking back to North Bend now. There was no black male teachers.
I had one black teacher. She was my African American history teacher.
What a coincidence.
Yeah. She was my African American history teacher, and she actually really got me the vision of HBCU experience. And she does this big HBCU tour experience every year, where we start from, I think, Philly, and we go all the way down to Atlanta, Georgia, and visit all these HBCUs. So she still reach out to her to this day.
And we're all products of HBCUs as well. So that speaks to a lot of it.
But y'all are products of HBCUs.
Mr. Parker here went to Shaw University, so it's not much we got to talk about there.
You went to hear about that.
That's about my house.
University. You went to a college. There's a difference.
It changed to a university. It did.
Oh, it changed to a university.
It did.
With the one graduate program.
Are you talking about St. Aug?
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called.
I almost went there.
One of the two.
I almost went there. However, I came to the light and I became a graduate of Winston-Salem State University.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
I mean,
After I left St. Albans, I went to Hampton University, the best.
That's where my sister
what you
went
say,
to.
the real HU?
I love Hampton, but I'm
Now-
sorry to you two and those schools that you went to.
I will only give props to Shaw because they're the mother of the NCHBCU and they produce Ella Baker. So
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
We produced North Carolina A&T and Fayetteville State. Yes, we did.
That's yeah.
And we had the first law school.
Great. Good for
We
you
had
all.
the first medical school. And we developed Snake.
But y'all using our football field.
Say what?
Ooh.
We don't need a football field, but we beat Winston-Salem in the championship. So we're not.
I love it. It's all HBCU love.
It's okay.
We're gonna head to our next question. We have two more. Who is that one student that stands out for you and why?
I don't want to talk about this. I'm gonna cry.
You're gonna cry. That's what it's meant to do. It's meant for you to channel your emotions because that's what education is all about.
I had this. So I usually teach PE fall, then I teach my health in the spring. So I had this fourth grader. He had on the most, I'll say, the most filthiest clothes. It was atrocious, I would say. So I had an extra pair of uniform clothes in my office. I gave him an extra pair of uniform clothes. I took his clothes, took him home and washed them, gave him a gift card the next day and gave him some money. And I told him, you stay encouraged and you don't give up because of what you look like.
Mm-hmm.
And that itself, he came up to me and said, my mom said, thank you so much. And she said she was crying. So just the little things, as educators, we don't only teach, we're counselors, we're mentors. We're more than just our little title. We're more than educating. So that itself really reminisced to me this day.
Yeah, I think for me, my student that stands out, a lot of things happened my first year. This kid in particular was the oldest of 6. Mind you, he was 9 years old. So with that being said, yeah, do the math. With that being said, it was like he would come in and he was a behavior child. I can't even lie. It was a behavior child. And then one thing that I had to continually realize is that regardless of what it was that he was dealing with at home, when he come into my classroom, that was a safe place for him. So a lot of the times he needed to sleep. Absolutely, go ahead, go to sleep because I knew his situation. And again, anytime that he would sleep, it was like, oh, well, he didn't learn anything in your classroom. But guess what? He got an A on the test. So even though he was sleeping, he was extremely smart and knowledgeable to the math lesson that I was teaching. And he just graduated 5th grade. And I was sitting at home at my other place and I received an email and I'm like, his name sounds familiar. It was actually his mom, who was at the time strung out on drugs. And she reached out to me and she simply just wanted to say thank you, because regardless of if I was his 3rd grade teacher, once he went to 4th grade, everything was always about Mr. Witherspoon told me to do this. 5th grade, same thing. Mr. Witherspoon told me to do this. And just to know that my words still meant something to him, even though he was no longer my student, I was no longer at that school, it was like, wow, that really stood out for me, because his behavior would oftentimes overshadow his academic performance. And people didn't realize how smart he was until awards day and he's being called up for honor roll or principal's list. And they're like, wait, what? He got 6 write-ups. What do you mean? But guess what? He also got 6 A's and B's in the class as well. So that really stood out for me.
I can honestly say my first year of teaching was a year of it was a year of love. It was a very, very great year. And it was my first year coaching soccer at this school. And I fell in love with my soccer players. They made some of my days the happiest days that I could ever imagine. But there was one kid on the soccer team, and he was really smart, really, really smart kid, really, really good kid. And during that summer, I remember his mom called me and asked me, had I seen him?
Mm-hmm.
And I was really confused as to how I would see him. Like, it's the summer, how would I see him?
Yeah.
And she had told me that he had ran away. So I immediately went looking for him because he lived in close proximity to where I live. But I found him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was talking to him and trying to figure out, like, why did you run away? And he was explaining that his dad was an alcoholic and he used to beat on his mom, and he would try to save his mom, but the guy, he would beat him too, and he just got tired, so he was trying to find a way to run where he was going to run to. So he and I, we built this bond, we built this relationship where now it's to the point where he's not just one of my former soccer players or a student that I taught. He's like my son. Like, anything that he needs, I make sure that he has. If he says he hasn't eaten, I'll get him something to eat. Mm-hmm. If he says, hey, I want to go to the movies, but I don't have any money, oh, well, here's $20, here and there. Like, he's texting me right now, asking me when we're going to go school shopping, because we do every year. Regardless if we're going remote, I'm still going to take him school shopping. But it's just that I know exactly where this kid is heading. I know that he is going to be something great. And I know me, and I knew where I was when I was a kid, and I was dealing with, seeing my mom being abused by my dad and what that felt like. I knew I had to save him and give him the somebody that I was looking for when I was dealing with everything that I was dealing with when I was a kid. And now when I talk to him and we talk about school and talk about his grades and making sure that he's here and that, and he's introducing me to his little girlfriends, which I don't like. I want him to focus on school, but I know that he's always going to be okay. But it's just a thing that when I talk to him and he talks to me about teaching, he always says to me, it's like, you're going to love one of those kids more than you love me. And that will never be the thing. And it's something that he's so used to. He's so used to people loving him and then leaving him. So I know for a fact that for the rest of my life, as long as God has me on this earth, that I'm going to have to love him and take care of him and protect him and, make sure he's okay.
Right. Good.
Can I cheat and do 3? And make it quick?
Absolutely.
The first girl I knew from orientation. It's something about during school orientation days when they first meet you, you'll know those kids is like, oh yeah, we gonna be like this.
Yeah.
She had a history of lashing out. She was about tall. I'm 5'11". She about tall as me. She had anger. She was dealing with a lot of anger previous years. Cuss out teachers, throw chairs around around the classroom. She actually slapped the teacher before, got in fights and things like that. And so you would never know that when you first look at her, because she's so quiet. She'll be like this. Mm-hmm. And, the first couple of weeks, I'm like, hey, I like this girl. We gonna be straight. I don't see nothing wrong. And then she starts showing her true colors.
Oh, man.
Like, all right, let's get to I said, and this is the thing that I love about my spiritual walk. It is, sometimes I'm not looking at the actual human being, but I'm looking at what's inside of it and what's the root to it. And so I knew that it couldn't have just been her.
Right.
And so once we had conversations, I built this system where we would do journaling. And so anytime that she needed to journal, whether it was in class or at home, I would let her do it. Even if she needed a break, I said, go journal. And I would I would see things that was talking about how her father was abusing her and her sisters and her brother and cussing out her mom and all these things. And I'm like, okay. And then I had an encounter with the father, and I was like, that's where it's coming from. So it's not necessarily her, but when you've seen these images and you've seen this thing time and time again, she thinks to model that, and she doesn't think that is wrong because that's all she knows.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to help change that from being a normal thing to that's not normal. So it's not normal to cuss me out and stuff. I ain't done nothing wrong to you. It's not normal to try to throw a chair at somebody's desk just because they said something you ain't like, but they didn't mean any harm. So I had to undo so many things. I had to go through a check-in, check-out system with her every day. But I think with her, it ended up getting so bad she started having anxiety attacks from home, things from home. And she would black out sometimes. Sometimes she would come to school with the same clothes on that she had the day before, and you could smell it. Mm-hmm. And you know, we would still have these conversations. I remember one day, it was in another class. It always happens in another class where she hauled off and hit a boy up the head with a chair. And I know one of the kids from the room said, "Hey, you gotta come get her. You gotta come get her." And all I did, I bear hugged her and I didn't drag her, but I carried her all the way to the end of the hallway. And she asked me a question. She said, "Why do you always come to save me?"
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And I said, I care about you so much that no matter, and I told her, I said, no matter what teachers say, no matter how you feel at home, I care about you so much to make sure that you're in my classroom every single day and that you're okay. And there she just broke down and cried. And even from that moment, I saved her from suspension.
Yeah.
Now, should she have been suspended? Maybe. She hit the boy upside the head with a chair.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I had to keep advocating for her. Like, it's not just her. I have to redo these things that she's learning from home. And she was never a person to show her feelings until she one day just wrote something to me. I still saved it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And she wrote a little note. She said, "You are nice, and you make me smile every day, and you make me understand everything." And she would write down all the little funny lessons that you learned.
Yeah.
You make sure I know things before moving on. When my head was hurting, you told me to not give up and keep trying. You are very caring. You break things down. You make everything fair. You give people a lot of tries before making them do something they don't like. And that's why you're nice. And then she wrote me another card. She literally went and found my name and figured out what it meant. And wrote out King Hines, drew a picture of me and wrote King Hines. That's what my name stands for, is King.
Yeah.
And so even now she emails me. Even last year, she would email me during class. I'm like, "Girl, you supposed to be paying attention in your class.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing." And then she starts battling with suicide, trying to kill herself. And it's a hard thing when I'm not there to help her. Mm-hmm. And I can't necessarily talk to the counselor all the time with her. And so that's one of the hardest things for me with her. But she's very loving. She makes me want to give my 100% every single day.
Yeah. That would have tore me up.
My second child now, this one is quick. One day he got up to the board. He didn't want to do a problem, so he slammed the pen on the board, and about broke my smart board. And I'll admit I blacked out, and I said something about, I said like, you a black boy and you need to be valuing your education and all this and that. I was furious because he said something about, I hate school, I can't stand school, I don't even want to be here, I don't even know why I'm here, I'm just trying to sell drugs and all this stuff. And I lashed out. He would be one sleep and everything. It wasn't until he passed all of his EOGs, he came back to me with tears in his eyes on the last day. He said, I know why you were so hard on me. And he was like, you weren't trying to lash at me, and you weren't trying to call me out and stuff, but you really cared about me. And I even took him out to an ECU game once he got to middle school and stuff. He really valued that. And I think I already talked about my third child. I saved her from alternative school, and she did a 180. She got suspended because of other classes.
Yeah.
Now, I ain't got no control over that.
Yeah.
But she brings out something to me that is accountability. Mm-hmm. She holds me accountable, and if I say I'm gonna do something, I better do it.
Yeah.
And
That's good. Like, all the stories are, obviously we have different stories, but one thing that we had in common is the fact that each student was able to show their appreciation for us. So that really means that we are doing our jobs correctly, and regardless of what field we're in, or not field, but regardless of what content area or position we're in, we just need to continue to reach out to those students to make sure nothing crazy happens, such as the suicide or the bullying. Question number 9 is, what is one thing you want your students to remember you by? So say, for instance, if the moment that you retire, or when the students are no longer in your classroom, what is something that you want them to remember you by?
One thing I want my students to remember me, or do remember me by, that I was hard on them, and it was meant out of love, and I disciplined them out of love as well, and I made an impact to them to show them how much I care for them in their education, and to let them know that don't give up.
Right. Good.
One thing that you want your students to remember you by, I went out of my comfort zone to make sure that they got everything they need. Literally, I don't even listen to rap or hip hop, but I made it a thing to listen to it to where I can make the content out of songs that they listen to. And God knows, man, when you get 85% of your kids passing a standardized test, and they were singing songs during ELG, you know, it's little stuff like that, going above and beyond. So if there's one thing, I went above and beyond my comfort zone just to make sure that they learn.
Good.
For me, it's just that, I want my students to remember that, no matter what I was going through in my personal life, they were always my number one priority. There was nothing in this world that was ever able to take their spot. So I want them to go out into this world and find somebody that they care about just as much as I care about them. Find, some people in this world that they care about just as much as I cared about them, or even become an educator and care about students just as much as I cared about them. Like, I want them to remember that, life is very circumstantial. Things happen to us every single day, and we need to be able to forget about the things that we have going on sometimes, and we need to focus on the things that we absolutely have to get done.
Good. I think for me, whether you believe it or not, I'm very shy. So to be able to stand in front of students in general, at first I was really nervous to do a lesson. Like open houses, if you want me to meet this amount of parents and you want me to actually talk like I got some sense and not sit here and just sweating all over the place. So it got to a point where I became comfortable with owning my classroom and owning the instruction and being able to continually build those relationships. And one thing that I can say, Reggie, a lot of your things that you do, you remind me a lot of myself when it came to going above and beyond creating the like the rap songs and like the dances, everything just to pretty much tie in to what the students actually was learning, because a lot of that really stuck with, especially with my Title I students. I try to do the same thing in charter schools. It worked, but not as well as it did with the Title I. So for me, my passion is really Title I, and at one point, I really want to get back to a Title I school, because those are the ones who need us the most. They have to see us in the classrooms and in the leadership roles. So I just simply want to be remembered as someone who gave them a chance, someone who didn't look at them as, oh, he or she is dirty or he or she got a nasty attitude, but taking them under my wing and being able to say, I see what you're going through and it's okay. We're going to get through it together. That whole part is something that I would always stress to my students. It's not just my classroom, it's our classroom. And with that, I start to see increase in student emotions, or how they viewed overall second grade or third grade. Because coming in, they were extremely nervous, not knowing what to expect by me. Because a lot of kids just felt like I was intimidating, I was mean, but then they actually become in my classroom, a part of my classroom, and they're like, oh yeah, he's really cool. Can you move up with us next year? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely not. 1 year with y'all is enough. Y'all can come back and visit though. So, any final words or thoughts from either of you?
One thing I would say is that, if any future educators are out there and they were listening to this, I hope that they understood the negatives that we talked about, but they also paid attention to the positive ways in which we talked about overcoming all of those negatives within the school system. Oftentimes you get new teachers that come in and there's always a group of Debbie Downers that talk about how this school is just this and administration is this and administration is that and this kid is this and this kid is that, just completely unhappy. And you can't make everybody happy. But one thing that the educator needs to understand is that the one person that they need to make sure that is happy is themselves and the students that they teach. Because if the students that they teach aren't happy, then you're not going to be happy either, because they are going to give you pure hell every single day. So I just want first year teachers to remember that, and remember, like we said the whole time we were up here, build those relationships. If you don't build those relationships, you're not going to get anywhere in teaching, regardless if you've been doing it for 1 year or if you're doing it for 16 years. Teacher that's been doing it for 16 years, when this new school year starts, they'll have to build new relationships with those kids. And if they choose not to, it's going to be a rough year for that 16th year teacher. Just continue to build those relationships.
That's the key component about being an educator and teaching, building relationships, letting your students know your why, so they can know why you got your teaching.
Yeah.
The same thing, building relationships, and also be your own teacher. You don't have to model anybody else. Just be your own teacher. And final words for you all too. I'm appreciative of even being on this panel as well, but also appreciative for y'all for what you all do. Never met any of you before, well, except for Quadra. But I can tell by the way that you all speak about your students and the passion that you have that you are great educators, and we need more like that. So I pray that you all will stick with it, continue to be passionate, to have the strength and the endurance, because I know there are days where you just like, forget this, I'm going somewhere else.
Oh, no.
And so I just pray that you all will continue to do what you're called to do, because obviously this is your calling. And so I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for this.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It really shows, like you said, the passion that each of you have. There's a difference between asking people to be a part and they not necessarily have the passion for it, and they're just getting up here answering the questions. But as you all spoke, the passion just came naturally. So this right here was the perfect group. Like I said before, it just happened naturally. I didn't say, oh, I want this teacher, I want this teacher, I want this one. I strategically brought you all on because I knew that you would speak to education in the way that African American males should. So really quickly, if you all want to give your social media outlets so people can follow you. If not, that's cool. I know me, I don't personally like a lot of people, but it's up to y'all.
But also remember, guys, this is the year of COVID-19. We're in the middle of the pandemic, and this is the perfect year for us as Black educators to show out in the classroom. Like, this is our year. Like, this is a year where you can really show them that we deserve to be here, because it's going to take some work this year. It's going to be completely different. It's going to take a lot of long days. And I know, especially for me, teaching 2 grade levels in 2 content areas,
Yeah,
we'll have a very, very long year. And I never taught English before in my lifetime. Only taught social studies. So we're about to be learning nouns and pronouns on the first day of school.
that's the way to do it.
Everybody's going to have to deal with it. It's called grammar refresher. So I figure out what I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, you learning with the kids. Hey, I get it.
I'll be right there on the board. All right, apple, is this a noun, verb?
Give them your social media, please, sir.
Oh, you all can follow me. No, don't. Yeah, y'all can follow me on Facebook. Y'all can add me on Facebook. I'm not going to add y'all back. But anyway, y'all can follow me on Facebook at Annie P, or you can follow me on Instagram at park_daddy__.
Oh man, I should have thought about this before I asked.
I'm Park Daddy.
Did y'all want to give yours as well?
Give mine. I'm sorry.
I have 2 class pages. I have a class page on Instagram and on Facebook. On Facebook is Hines 5th grade. That's the Facebook page to access all the things that I do for my class. On Instagram, it's _Hines312_. And then on Twitter and Instagram, my personal pages is rhines, RHINEZ_. So you can follow me there. But I personally respond to emails at hinesr1@pitt.k12.nc.us.
Why are all the NC?
Gotta love it. That's education, man.
So long. I see a mess email was so long. When I was telling people that thing, I used to get out of breath.
Yeah. I'm like, let me not even give you that email because we're going to be here for a minute.
Right. If I just use my personal email, you ain't got enough room on the line to write it. You be writing so small.
Well, again, I definitely thank each of you for being a part. This was great conversation. So please be on the lookout for this, and everyone take care.